Out the door, 6:30. Nice sunrise. I either need to leave before 6:30 or after 8:30, unless I want to be stuck in a ton of traffic. So last night I got to go to You Do It Electronics in Needham, Massachusetts. And I'll roll in a little bit of footage that I took inside there. But that place is awesome. It's much more geek than I am. I'm sorry I didn't get record the conversation that the two sales support associates had with each other about my application and what I should get or shouldn't get. It was way over my head, electronically speaking. But I went there for a project I'm working on the adventure van, and the part that I got there was a diode to try to prevent current from, going upstream. And I hooked it up last night, and it does do that. It prevents the current from going upstream, but it also seems to limit the current going downstream. Thankfully they weren't expensive, and I'm gonna go get a relay today to hopefully wrap up that adventure van wiring project. I was trying to do it as technically simple as possible, mostly out of laziness, and that usually comes back and bites you, in my experience. When you know you should probably not be lazy, but you decide to try to be lazy. I mean, it's not a huge this particular case isn't a huge cost, right, to me, so there wasn't really a big cost to being lazy, but just more work. So begins my commute, and this is light traffic, because it's only 6:30 in the morning. It's a nice, like 58 degrees, so it's nice and comfortable. The astute among you will notice that the GoPro is back on the side of my, after having been on the chin, mounted on the chin for a measly 2 weeks. And I liked the view from the chin, but there's a story. So, the story goes, I ordered some more curved mounts from Amazon that were listed as, GoPro brand official, fulfilled by GoPro or whatever the Amazon language is. And when I get them, they look a bit different. There's definitely not in a GoPro package. And GoPro is not one to under-brand, you know, be subtle about branding their products or labeling their products. And so there's the plastic mount and the foam adhesive backing. And normally on GoPro branded stuff, the foam backing is already on the mount. And there's just the red 3M side of the adhesive to remove and stick to your helmet in this case. Well, the mounts that I got, the foam adhesive was separate, so not already stuck to the mounts. And upon further inspection a bit later, the foam was much softer and much more pliable. So I don't know what the difference is. It still said 3M, the labels still look the same. So I don't know if it's an actual 3M product, but just a different, maybe a cheaper version of it, or whether it's a knockoff 3M product. And they just use the same or very similar looking red material. Anyway, so I put it on my helmet, and like many helmets, and like all Shoei RF series helmets, the chin has a ridge, both a horizontal ridge and then a pretty steep vertical curve, so even the curved mounts don't fit all that great. So I did modify them. I cut out the middle strip of the foam backer to fit around that curve a bit more on the helmet, and I also built up the bottom with another layer of foam, and it made decent enough contact. Long story short, 2 weeks later or so, I go to retrieve my helmet from the shelf that I stored on, and the mount has become detached from the adhesive foam for the most part. So the GoPro is just kind of hanging there, and so then I can very easily pull the GoPro off, and also turns out very easily pull the rest of the foam away from the helmet. And again, it was very stretchy and not firm like the name brand GoPro mounts that I have. Anyway, so I guess the moral of the story is, be careful what you buy on Amazon. Even if it does seem to say that it's sold by or fulfilled by GoPro, there might be, maybe, I don't know, maybe I got duped and maybe the real GoPro items are fulfilled by GoPro Inc. I don't know, or something like that. Anyway, so in the end, the camera is now back on the side where it was before, and it'll stay there until I'm ready to spend the $20, or maybe it might be $30, I don't remember, for new name brand curved mounts, because I'm all out of my curved mounts, plus the front mount kit, I think, to do it like Moto Luminosity does it. I think that's his name. I'll put a link to the video down in the description. He has this sort of cantilevered arm setup that seems to work well. So when I get motivated both to spend the money and to do the setup, I'll probably do that. I've also switched to using a skeleton housing for the GoPro and bought a cheap USB lavalier mic that I'm using now, because I've been recording every ride for years on my commutes or for pleasure or whatnot, but most of the time I just delete them. I record in case something fun happens, which isn't all that often, or something unfortunate happens, which is thankfully even less often. So now I thought, well, maybe I could just buy a mic and do some moto vlogging, and maybe use some of this footage. Here we have Boston, cresting the overpass to reveal the Boston skyline. So I'll have a link to the skeleton housing, the microphone that I'm using. Also, I put an extra wind muff, like a dead cat style wind muff, on the microphone. And hopefully that's working. Actually, this is the first test of it. And I also purchased the high torque thumb screw set. They're just easier to torque down without a screwdriver. There you go. Under 40 minute commute when you leave this early. And almost an hour when you leave later. Thanks for riding along.